Hello and welcome to the only podcast hoping for a better 2025 than 2024. I don't know about you guys, but I had a particularly bad May. I'm Luke.
I'm Max.
And I'm Matt.
And this is Force for Thought.
All right, before, Matt, did you say your name?
Yeah. Do you not hear me?
I didn't hear you.
I didn't hear it either.
Oh, this sucks.
Matt's here, everyone.
Yeah, I did indeed.
All right, hello and welcome back to Force for Thought. Today we are reviewing the Skeleton Crew Episode 5. You have a lot to learn about pirates, and I am super excited to get into it. Overall, I think this is my favorite episode of the 5 so far, which I was really happy about because last week I said that Episode 4 was probably the less of the 4, and I feel like this one is my favorite so far. Kind of by a lot, I want to say, but I'm curious what you guys think. Luke, what did you think?
I liked it way more than episode 4, and I feel so vindicated saying that I didn't like episode 4 as much and I couldn't quite put my finger on it at the time, but now having watched episode 5, I'm like, yes, that's what was not there. That's what was not there. Like, Jod using the Force or being a Jedi never came up in episode 4. Wim's spirit of adventure and wanting to go on a big adventure and get into no good because he's an idiot kid, that was barely in episode 4, and episode 5 did it all so well. Fantastic episode. What's her name? The girl pirate had an Irish accent. Favorite accent. Loved seeing her. The pirates came back. No Brutus, which was a bummer. And we talked before that maybe by episode 5 or so, when Pirate Urkel shows up, we won't consider him Pirate Urkel, but still do. It cut to him that one time, and I audibly said, "Hey, Urkel."
And I think that was the last that we saw of him, but we'll discuss more about that in a second. And the parents, we got to see the parents back on that Atten too. That was another thing that we didn't get to see in episode 4, which I was really excited about. Matt, overall, episode 5, what were your thoughts?
This is also my favorite episode. It's Indiana Jones and Star Wars. It feels right in line and akin to everything that like George Lucas and Amblin era should be, I feel like. I absolutely loved it. We did get the Brutus hologram though as well, so that was cool.
Yes.
There was a hologram.
Also
Brutus.
a lot of Irish talk on and off mic and off pod.
Yes, we were just discussing a recent revelation that Luke and I are apparently Irish, so that's a fun behind-the-scenes peek for the fans.
St. Patrick's Day is only 3 months away. First time I'm actually going to celebrate. Who's excited with me?
You celebrated last year and you got really drunk, did you not?
No.
What? You did? And I said, Luke, you don't really drink though. And you said, I don't drink for fun. I drink for results. I believe those were your exact words.
I'm certain it was. I'm certain I might have said that, but it definitely was not for St. Patrick's Day.
Sounds like something you would say.
I'm certain I said if I'm at a wedding or,
hanging out with your dad. Is this ringing a bell?
No, definitely not for St. Patrick's Day.
Okay, never mind. I'll talk to you later about it.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out off pod. But anyway, so let's go through the episode a little bit. Starting with the opening sequence, we get to see a little bit, like I said, of the adults take action back on that Atten. I don't know any of their names, but Wim's dad is given a little hacking device from Neil's mom, who then gets caught and taken to Fern's mom, who kind of helps cover up for them, which I enjoyed. It was one thing where I was like, oh, that seems a little easy. I don't know. Like, I enjoyed the scene of Wim's dad getting caught when he was like trying to hide it behind his back. And the whole time I'm like, ooh, I wonder how he's going to get out of this. And then he didn't. He just got caught. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then it was straight to Fern's mom who covered up for him. And I was like, okay, yeah, that checks out. But I don't know. I liked that sequence. The only kind of thing of note was when Wim's dad said that the supervisor isn't going to help. And I get the impression that they still haven't spoken to the supervisor about this and that the supervisor is just conveniently absent. And I think that is going to be an important thing that'll come back into play later. But Matt, did you have any major thoughts or anything about that scene in particular?
On that scene specifically, I feel like I was wondering if this is like the worst case scenario for the parents. It feels like when you're at a kid's birthday party and the only other people you can talk to are other kids' parents and you don't really know any of them. That's what that feels like. Like, are all these people just having to interact with each other? Like, do they? Kind of want to know if they know each other outside of their kids being friends, because that seems horrible.
I'm pretty confident that they don't. No one wanted to watch it with me this week, so I was watching it alone. But I was still cracking jokes because when Wim's dad went over to Neil's mom, it's like, we don't really know Neil's mom, but we're led to assume that's Neil's mom. I was like, oh, who's this girl? Clearly gonna be Neil's parent.
And then we had the scene then back on the ship, the Onyx Cinder, and we got the name drop, which I was glad about because I literally just realized the other day at Target when I was doing some last minute Christmas shopping that the ship is named the Onyx Cinder, and I saw that on a Lego set, and I was like, oh, that's cool. I didn't know if we ever heard that in the show yet, and I didn't know if that was going to be coming up, but apparently it is. It is the famed pirate ship of Tak Renad, or Tak Renid, who is the previous captain to SM-33, and we talked previously about how we thought that he was going to be somebody relevant, and I still stand by that because we see a very obscured hologram later on of this captain, and we don't see his face, and I don't think that was an accident. But sticking with
it was
the
almost
first scene,
too on the nose.
it was.
It was like,
I know.
what's wrong with the
That's a dead
picture?
giveaway.
Who
It's like,
called it
oh,
out?
okay, I get it.
Neil called it out too. He was
Yeah.
like, I can't see it, and Jod was like, shh, and I was like, oh well, yeah.
Yeah. And also they're wearing like a helmet or mask, which is like pretty. Like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, they're doubling up now.
It was the big hat. It was the over the top pirate hat. You can make that part out. So you knew it was a pirate, but you didn't see the face. And I'm wondering how much of the legend of Tak Renid is true, because according to the story that Jod gave, he was betrayed by his crew and stabbed by his concubine. And then we got that really funny beat of Neil asking what a concubine is. But I don't think that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Am I the only one that also didn't know what a concubine was? I feel like a child because apparently only the children don't know, but I don't know.
Did you Google it?
To live through their eyes, you know.
No.
All right, well,
Should I? Do you not want to say it on pod?
we'll tell you.
This is Star
We'll tell
Wars.
you
What
when
is
you're
it?
older. Isn't it like a sex slave? What's the definition of a concubine?
Oh boy, now I gotta Google it.
that's
We can't go
I
putting
don't
that
think-
out there if it's wrong. Matt, did you know?
A woman
I
who
don't think
lives with a
that's
man she is not married to, and in some societies has a lower social rank than his wife. So more of a mistress.
Space-age whore. Okay.
More of a mistress, I guess. But yeah, according to legend, she stabbed him, and I don't know if that's true or not, because I'm guessing that Tak Renid is the supervisor back on AT-ATN, but that's just a theory. He would also be thousands of years old, so I
Fingers
don't know.
crossed.
There's a lot going on that I'm
Depp.
still trying to piece together in my head, but I feel like we're so close.
If he was the supervisor, we could have seen the hologram of him because we've never seen the supervisor. So that leads me to believe it's got to be someone we've already seen, and those options are few.
And they would be
Maybe one of
thousands
the
of years
people-
old, or hundreds of years old. We really don't know how old.
I mean, it's got to be really old. No, never mind. I was gonna say because he led the pilgrimage to AT-ATN before AT-ATN closed itself off. So like AT-ATN is at least a lot older than Tak Renid, but that's not necessarily true. That he might have just been going, but it was already the legendary treasure. But it was probably just the treasury, and then that name faded into myth and became a legendary treasure, right?
That's fun. Probably. That makes a lot of
So-
sense. I didn't really put that together.
So those two
layers.
two events do happen around the same time, when Tak Renid crashed there, and when AT-ATN probably closed itself off and hid from the rest of the galaxy.
And then we got to see this nice scene of a heart-to-heart between Jod and Wim. And this was nice because it felt like they were trying to come back to Wim, because the show really set him up like he was going to be the main character. And I feel like the vast majority has been following Fern. But, you know, we got to see this nice
Which I
little heart-to-heart.
prefer.
Yeah.
I think that's the right call.
But we got this nice little
We
heart-to-heart.
were complaining about in episode 3 that Wim was being too much, so
Yes.
we can't knock
They
it both
hearken
ways.
No, they hearken. I think it's the right call to follow Fern. I mean, like, I like that 180, and each kid is kind of getting their own little like moment.
She's definitely having the more interesting storyline of the four
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
But in the heart to heart, he was giving some very Jedi sounding advice, and it was really interesting because the whole time he was talking, he was basically talking to Wim about his family back home and how he misses his mom, and we don't really know the whole story yet about his mom, but his mom isn't there. And
Is that the first mom mention we've had?
No, I think she was mentioned in episode 1, I want to say, but don't quote me on that. I don't know. But I feel like we've talked about it before, so I think probably. But regardless, he mentioned it. We still don't know. We don't know the story.
She wasn't in that parent meeting with KB's 2 moms and Neil's parents and the Burns supervisor, undersecretary. Was that her title? I don't remember.
Well, presumably she's dead.
Yeah, that was the impression that I got.
Then.
Okay, yeah, I assumed. Yeah, I thought we're all on the same page.
Yeah, she's definitely not in the picture, one way or another.
Is that how it is now? Because he said he doesn't miss his mom, or what did he say? He said he'd care about his mom or something. I got the impression that she's a deadbeat and absent.
Wait, who? When?
Wim's mom, yeah.
I think he said that he can't see his mom.
In this episode?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. In that moment, I'm pretty sure he said he can't see his mom, which is what draws him back. And then I'm pretty sure it's implied that.
Yeah, because he didn't say why.
She's dead.
The implication that I got was she's dead.
Yeah.
Okay. But then in the heart to heart, Jod is giving him some advice that sounds very much like a once Jedi would probably give, talking about attachments and removing any sort of attachments from your life. And it was funny hearing the context coming from this sleazy pirate, because the entire time he's talking about this, in my head, I'm like, oh, that kind of sounds like something that a Jedi would say. And then, and this was probably what I was most excited about the whole episode, he dropped Luke's favorite line in all of Star Wars when he said, your focus determines your reality. And in that moment, it like hit me over the head, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he was a Jedi. He's force sensitive. And like, I'm connecting like all these dots, and I'm like, wait, would he have been a Jedi? Would he have been a youngling? How does he know this stuff? Is this something that he actually knows, or is this just kind of like a wink wink to the audience? Is this an homage? And I was like, no, this is not an homage, because that's such a specific Qui-Gon line. And I'm like, this is definitely, there's some sort of connection here. He is definitely some sort of former Jedi, or has some connection to the Jedi, not just being force sensitive.
He's using the Force. He's not just like kind
yes,
of
but
force
anyone
sensitive.
can use
He's
the Force.
picking stuff up.
Just because you can use the Force doesn't mean that you were a previous Jedi. That was the direction that I thought it was going to go.
It doesn't literally mean that canonically, but it sort of means that.
It's no.
Like if you're following another Force religion, maybe, or you just figured it out on your own. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been any number of things.
Maybe this is before my whole midi-chlorian tinfoil hat theory, when it's after Jod figured out the Force on his own that the Jedi Council starts gatekeeping the Force and making up midi-chlorians and saying that only a small percentage of people can use it. Oh my god, everything's coming together. The writers listen to the pod. With that quote, the lightsaber stuff with Wim, that was hilarious and awesome.
We have willed this into existence.
This is Kenobi's brother, yeah, then we're going to have to shit ourselves.
Yeah, because we get another name drop of Jod.
Yeah.
It sounds like a brand of toothpaste.
So, once again, they're hinting at his real name, Luke. I really think we're about to get a John Kenobi reveal.
Why not? I mean, he's got, what's that, his 4th or 5th name? Just toss it in.
And we talked about how Jude Law and Ian McGregor were roommates in college, so,
There you go.
Obi-Wan is there's the
no, that's too far. I don't want our listeners to think
as I said that, a light bulb just went off in your head and you wanted to go down that route.
They're in touch with each other. They're making it happen. They're working behind the scenes. And then they arrive at Lanupa, which was a funny sequence. I really like that, how Smee kept describing this as like this famed pirate world, and he's like, it goes by many names: Demon's Rest, Battle World, Lanupa. And then they get there and it's like this luxury spa, and the entire time Smee's just like, they ruined it. I really like that. As the show goes on, I'm really liking Smee's character a lot more. I feel like they did a really good job of making the wisecracking droid companion still very much unique, mostly by being like an over-the-top pirate who's like, very old. He's very old, but so is Hu Yang.
Yep.
And I was thinking about that the other day too. They're both very old, but Hu Yang has obviously, kept himself up. He's very well maintained. Whereas Smee is more like decrepit and literally falling apart. And I really like that.
I mean, he was literally inactive for thousands of years as well.
Yeah, he was
rotting
drunk.
away. But also,
Hu Yang's
something
been
I liked
an
about
active
him.
member of the Republic.
Yeah, he's got the best of the best healthcare wise. Something that I really liked about him as well is just the fact that he is just obeying this pirate code, which obviously we'll get into later. But that's something that we haven't really seen fully before. And the fact that he lives by that code, so you never really know if he's gonna be good or bad or what his intentions are gonna be. Like, he knew what AT-AT was. It's just he was programmed not to say it. So that's like, it's interesting that he is literally like a Rubik's Cube. Like, you have to try to solve him every single episode.
It is interesting. And when we talk about the pirate code, we can discuss it more, but I was also thinking what that means for droids as far as their programming. Is that like a difference between hardwired and softwired? Because they're able to do these memory overrides on command. Do you think there's a way that they could just verbally tell him to override his loyalty to the pirate code? Because I don't think they can. I think that's like a physical thing. Like, he has to do that. But I don't know what the difference is.
I also feel like there's something about what type of droid they are. Like, I don't think you could do that with like an R2 unit, for example. I feel like it could be very specific. Like, it's like our technology, right? It's like, oh, like an iPhone versus like an iPod are very different things, And I feel like it could be the same concept where it's like, oh yeah, I can call somebody on my iPhone, but you couldn't on an iPod if this was 2012.
I like the theory of it being a hardware versus software thing, but then that opens the can of worms in my head where it's like, that means that a manufacturer manufactured a line of droid to be a pirate. And pirates, historically in our world and in Star Wars, are famous for just retrofitting whatever loot they find to fit their needs with their ships and their weapons and whatever. And now this would be like a very high IQ play from the pirate community to get their own sort of brand of droid out there somehow.
Do you think
How hard is it to build a
possible?
droid in Star Wars? Do we really know? I mean, Anakin was able to do it as a kid.
He retrofitted
is-
it. That story was heavily embellished. He was 9. Let's relax. He found most of a C-3PO unit in a junkyard and then fixed it up.
He hit the on switch. Is it a possibility, though, that droid was created more or less for just, say, slave purposes, and then they were just, taken by pirates to be programmed for their needs? So, again, it's like a droid
He said
made for something.
He said
Well, then
Lanupa
would you be
was
able to
the.
re-hardware?
He said it was where he was built. So presumably it was the pirates who built him.
Hey, you got to get,
Yeah,
even
that's
like
true.
biker gang members have some good smart people in there, right? Like good high tech people. So
I don't mean to disparage the intellect of pirates. I just think it's
Yeah.
we're opening a bit of a can of worms if they can manufacture their own high-tech things like that. At what point do you stop being a pirate gang and become a militia, If you start...
it's a fine line, my friend.
All right, so they arrive at Lanupa. They come out as the wise delegates, which I thought was funny. I always like these moments in this show and any Star Wars show where I'm like, oh yeah, this is just written by a bunch of people who like playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like, as soon as those kids came out wearing the costumes, I said out loud, roll for deception. But it was fun. I liked that. I liked that we got to see the restraining bolt in action because we see those a lot in Star Wars. And then he was spotted by Puckett, who is a bounty hunter.
Great name.
And I
Great
really liked that.
Pirates of the Caribbean name.
It is. It's a very simple name. It's a very simple character. I, for some reason, really appreciated the character of Pocket. It is the perfect level of alien.
It was her accent.
It might have been the accent. It might have been.
It's in our blood, Max.
Because I've said that. Our blood.
I know.
I've said that before. That the
you have
British
Irish
accent,
bias.
Irish bias. We've found out that we've been Irish for like 2 days. Already have like Notre Dame flags on my house and stuff. But maybe it's the voice that does it a lot. I have said that the British accent can carry a performance pretty far, but also the makeup and the creature design, because it was basically just a person, but just in white paint, but it looked fantastic. And she had white contacts in as well, and that looked fantastic. And I'm just like, that is like so, that seems to me like that should be pretty easy to do. And I'm like, this is what like 75% of the characters in Star Wars who are human should be. Like, they don't all need to be like over the top with like with like costuming. Like Neil, I understand that probably took a lot of work to get right with the mix between, you know, puppetry and practical effects versus CGI and all that. But like Pocket, like just paint everyone a different color and give them some unique feature and throw them on camera, because that looks so cool. And not to get weird with it, but I really liked looking at her.
I'm glad it makes me happy since she's my complexion.
I agree wholeheartedly. It's the difference between doing a lot and doing nothing. Sometimes I feel like Star Wars is like, oh, well, if we can't have a full-on Rodian for this scene, we might as well just make him human. Like, no, you could do something. I was thinking about this recently when I was watching Return of the Jedi, because the Emperor could have been such a normal human, but they really did up his makeup, and he's not just old, he's like creepy old. Like, they made him look really exceptional, and they didn't need to. They could have gotten away with just having him old. But it's similar with DJ in The Last Jedi. I excuse that one because he is just a human, but he's got a fun stutter, so he stands apart in my mind. I think he is on the one hair past the line, and a hair before the line is also from The Last Jedi, Holdo, who they gave purple hair to, and it's like, technically you did something, but I need a little bit more. That's not quite different enough still. It's like the difference between Holdo and DJ is very small, but that's the line that I need you to cross.
That's really funny, and yeah, I agree with that. I've never really tried putting that into words, but you're right. At a certain point, there's like so little effort that you're just like, I know you put in some, but it's such little that it is almost more insulting than none. But yeah, I liked Pocket. She called in the bounty, obviously, and the pirates show up, led by Urkel Pirate. And they follow them around. I'm kind of jumping forward a little bit. They kind of look through the mines, the caves. They meet Cathalops, who helps them. I like that sequence. I thought that was funny.
That was funny.
And then they find their way into the mountain, and they find Tak Renid's lair. And when they do, they kill the pirates behind them by filling that pool up with acid, which was really cool. But that's why I said earlier, I think that's the last that we see of Urkel. Because presumably they were all
I
in that
don't
pool.
think so.
Yeah, I feel like he's got to survive somehow.
Yeah, I think they jumped out. Maybe their feet got burned a bit. Maybe one or two of them died as they were climbing over each other. I don't think that's the last we'll see of... I mean, it's obviously... Brutus wasn't there. It's obviously not the last we'll see of the pirate gang.
Right.
But I think we'll see Space Urkel again.
I agree. Also, to go back for 2 seconds, for two things real quick, is... One is that this is I love this episode because it also just mixes a lot of things I love. I know I texted you guys this earlier, but it literally just is White Lotus, like the exact same beats is White Lotus.
What is White Lotus? I didn't get that.
Yeah, I've never seen it.
You should watch White Lotus. It's the creator, which is crazy. It's the creator of School of Rock, aka Ned Schneebly, the actor. Mike White went on to create the White Lotus, and so basically, the White Lotus is a hotel chain, like akin to the Hilton. It's a luxury, but like I guess maybe more luxury back in like the days.
I'm sorry. Back up.
Yes.
Are you saying that Ned Schneebly was the creator of School of Rock?
I am indeed saying that. Yeah, Mike White.
Okay. I just needed a moment for that. Thank you. Carry on.
Yes.
His name's Mike White, and Jack Black was the other Ned Schneebly. That's also hilarious.
Yep. And they have a band called Grey.
No, they did not.
No, they don't.
Okay.
They did that joke's kind of taken because Jack Black and Jack White had a band called Grey. They like performed as a band called Grey for like a show. So I should have said yes. But yeah, so the show is basically every season takes place at a different resort. One's in Italy and one is in I don't know where the other one's at actually. Maybe Hawaii. Anyway, it's like one of those things where it's like it starts off nice and it gets crazy and there's like a murder at the end of each season basically. But like in the beginning,
because it takes place in like a spa resort, doesn't it?
Yes, yeah. Each season of White Lotus, and this specifically, it just was the exact same
Right.
beat where
Now I'm
once
seeing the
they're
connection.
yes, once they're landing, even there is in the first season of White Lotus the guy who greets them. It's like the same exact setup. A gaggle of people greet them. They're like super unhappy, but they put on this fake smile because they're at a luxury resort. It's exactly what happens in this episode as well. The lady I thought played it so well. She's like this fake smile, clearly knowing that these are kids, and checking them in and stuff. I love that that aspect of it. And it was like, what if White Lotus was in Star Wars, but also what if there's concurrently an Indiana Jones movie going on? And then that's my second point, real quick, is one of the coolest moments and one of the most brutal moments, which I love how they did this even because it reminds me of the original trilogy where it's just implied, is where the guy, it's full of booby traps and he goes up to it and it's that patch of light, which reminds me a lot of Halo, and he throws the rock up and it floats up instantly. He looks up and there's a bunch of spikes and a skeleton hanging from there. And then obviously he gets shot and then he goes up and gets impaled without showing it. I thought that was an amazing scene and like scarier than if you actually saw him getting impaled because it's not bloody, it's not whatever. It's just you have to imagine it, and it like weirdly sticks with you for longer than anything else. But I love that imagination of like the rock floating up. Like that's a crazy torture device. And I was like, oh my god, like if I would talk about Star Wars intricacies, Star Wars booby traps are endless apparently. And I thought that was
The
one of the coolest
possibilities are
parts.
endless. Yeah.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like one of the coolest. I mean, the decapitation scene as well. I thought that was crazy. He thank God they kept the skull. And then I love how the kids are shorter than the intended decapitation. Like it's just it's I loved all of that stuff. Like that is so Goonies, so Indiana Jones. Like I love that stuff.
I agree. I really like that beat because Jod and Smee knew to duck, but the kids didn't, but they're short anyway. So it's like, oh, they're okay. Yeah. I like that. I also liked, I didn't mean to jump over it, but the sequence with the acid, when they're first getting into it and they have to kind of solve that riddle that to enter paradise, you have to make the ultimate sacrifice. And you get that cool little beat of like, oh, someone has to sacrifice themselves, but he's a pirate. He kills people all the time. Life is not like the ultimate sacrifice for him. Money is.
Yeah.
And so you have to like throw money in like a wishing well, basically. And I thought that was kind of cool. It was a little on the nose, but I really liked it.
But also, is KB some sort of android? Like, I know that we don't. That's more like Alien universe. But like the fact that earlier she didn't want to go down to the spa because she said she's worried about rusting, or that's what Fern mentions. I was like, is it just her headpiece? But also, what does the headpiece connect to, and why does she have it? And that for me unlocked a million questions. And I was like, does she have two moms on purpose? Because then she was like created. But I was like, that seems like way too complicated for Star Wars to go into. But then I was just thinking, I was like, is this the first kind of like droid we'll see that is a person with like, it really hurt my mind to think about that deeply. And I don't think there's anything to it, but I went down a rabbit hole mentally for like 5 minutes.
There are a lot of places the story could go in regards to KB. My patience is starting to be tested that we are now 5 of 8 episodes in, and we have learned nothing other than a couple throwaway lines. I really thought we'd be further along right now. I'm not saying that the show cannot introduce and resolve a satisfying story arc for KB in the last 3 episodes, but I'm getting more and more nervous that they're not going to very much.
Matt,
Luke,
I'm so glad that you said that because I had that exact same note and I forgot to talk about it. But yeah, they said that she's worried about the corrosion from the steam. And I remember they made a big point about saying that. And as they said it, I was, again, watching by myself, but I literally said out loud, what? Like, I had the same thought. I'm like, where are we going? Is she not human who's just wearing like high-tech glasses? Is she actually some sort of robot? Like, I feel like it keeps going back and forth, and I just keep getting reminded of Threat Level Midnight from The Office when Dwight is playing a robot the entire time, and Michael's like, no, he's not playing a robot. Then at the end, he spills his coffee on him, and he breaks, and he's like, oh yeah, I guess he was a robot. That's how I feel like KB is right now. I feel like everyone's on different paths with her. Like, people are like, oh, she's just a kid. Others are like, no, she's a robot. And then it's just like, wait, back up, get your story together. What is it?
I know. I'm like, then there's like, is that go into creepiness of like of AT-AT? Are they creating some sort of like next generation of people or something? And then I don't know. Luke, I love, this is going to sound like an insult, but it's not, I swear. And as I genuinely love that your criticisms of talking about, of Skeleton Crew, like your patience wearing thin. And this, I swear to God, this is not an insult, but like I feel like you were just totally fine because we all have blindnesses, and I like your Jedi blindness for the Acolyte. That's exactly how Max and I felt a lot about the Acolyte, but I think there's less lightsabers in this show, so you're less forgiving with it, which is good,
but
which
not
is
none.
Fine. But not none now. Yes, but no, I genuinely think that's a good thing to be able to keep up and keep us on our toes, even though, yes, I agree with the KB aspect for sure.
This is
like,
also very
the
miscellaneous.
one character we don't get.
This is also very miscellaneous, but one note I also had that I didn't say at the time was during the first scene when we're watching the adults. Holy toxic work environment. You have these security droids literally standing over all these people in their cubicles the entire time while they work. Oh, that like really jumped out at me. I was like, oh man, that would suck. I watch so much TikTok when I'm
Amazon.
at
work. Yeah, they were like, there's an overload at this workstation. It's like, oh my God. That's the equivalent of like watching porn at the library.
That was an awesome shot when the security droid turned directly to Wim's dad.
But anyway, like I said, that was miscellaneous. Moving on. So we get to...
Before we move on, I wanted to talk about when they split up in teams and KB and Neil and Jod went together. And I thought we were almost going to get some KB content, which we sort of did, but just a little bit. When she used the wrench to get those guys, that was really exciting. But I thought, again, we were going to get some, like, oh, KB is a great mechanic, which has been alluded to and stuff. But that was also giving me D&D vibes, where it's like, oh, man, I'm not a fighter or particularly intelligent or charismatic. I'm just a mechanic, whatever.
Funny.
And in the very beginning, when they were talking about whether or not the ropes would hold him and who should turn him on, and then they have that scene and he just stands up.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Wasn't holding him down at all. I also like that. And then we get to Tak Renid's lair. How are we pronouncing his name? Because I feel like one of them said it Renaud. I feel like Neil might have said that. And that's also how it's spelled, so I'm going to want to keep saying Renaud. But I don't want this to be another Luthen Rael thing where you guys let me go for a year and a half before calling me out on it.
Hated that time.
Harry Winkler situation?
I still don't know which one it really is.
Max, I meant to text this to you, and this is probably not the time to say it, but I have the same thing now with a pizza shop in New York called John's on Bleecker Street. My dad always calls it John's on Beaker Street, which is the Beaker, which, as you know, is my favorite character from the Muppets. And so now I always call it John's on Beaker Street. And it drives my brothers up a fucking wall.
And now the lines of reality have been blurred and you don't know which one it actually is anymore.
1000%, yes. I'm so sorry.
So, Tak Renaud, are we good with that?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
All right.
Until it's further.
For today, yeah.
We get to his lair and we see some of his treasure, among which was a lone lightsaber. And they start looking for the data log, which was really cool. Neil, once again, coming in clutch, finding the roast that was, the thing or whatever, and it led to a trap door.
It's because of his trunk. He has a keen sense of smell.
But he wouldn't smell that, though, because it's not real.
Exactly.
So he was looking for it, and he didn't smell.
He was looking at that roast and gave it a little sniff, and was like, "Hold on."
That's interesting. And then they try to reach for it, and it reveals that kind of trap door type thing, which is a question mark for me, because to me, like when Jod saves him from falling down the first time, I was like, "Oh, that's good. He almost just died." And then at the end of the episode, they obviously like smack that chair and they fall down, and I was like, "Oh, I would not have done that."
Yes, we have been led to believe that at the end of these booby traps are spike traps.
Correct. So. Yeah, I would be pissed if I was one of those kids and someone else just smacked that thing. But anyway, I'm assuming they're not dead. Maybe episode 6 starts with a huge twist. We'll see. But we get to see the scene of the captain's log, Tak Renaud. We already talked about this.
Let's just keep calling him the captain.
The captain. He was obscured. We didn't see his face. Why didn't we see his face?
Technology, dilapidation.
I mean, from a writing perspective, is this someone that we already know?
It's got to be someone
I
we know,
think it
or
has to be.
taken. Yeah, I agree. And I don't, or it's gonna be some sort of reveal, right? Like, part of me is, I don't know. There's got to be something. Man, I don't know.
'Cause I just
my
said
mind can go
this-
in a million directions. Like, I don't want to say, is there a possibility of any sorts that it has to do with Jod? I don't know. I don't know. I can come up with a million theories that I know are wrong.
I mean, Jod is one of few characters that we've seen the face of. So, like, I'm in the point now where no idea is a bad idea. Like, maybe he's an elephant species, and that would be a giveaway, and it's an ancestor of Neil's. But he kind of looked human. I thought I could tell at least that he was, like, humanoid, not Cathalos, or whatever that guy's name is, like, or a Hut. But, yeah, like, who else could it be? One of the
Cathalos was
people
great,
on
by the way.
Akron, if they're expecting us to remember what those people looked like, besides the honey from Neil.
That would be good. I'd like that if it turns out that he's one of those species and Neil's like a descendant of Tak Renad. But there's not a whole lot of people that it could be.
No.
I mean, part of me is thinking like, oh, maybe they just did it moving forward because we're going to see somebody and they don't want us to know right away that it's going to be this person. Because this person's also
I
going to
solved
be
it.
ancient.
No. He's got a visor on, and it's a KB rebirth kind of situation where the visor is the essence of the captain. And she's like the same. She is the captain. Oh, I got goosebumps.
That's going to be her character arc. That seems... Matt, what do you
KB
think?
Matters.
I mean, that's, again, no idea is a bad idea at this point either, because I was going to say there's something about how, man, I don't know. I was like, maybe it's Wynn's mom. I was like, this made any fucking sense for him, like 7,000 different reasons. And so there's, that's, again, I can come up with a million different reasons that all are not going to be true. So I do not know. From a writing perspective, I guess, like you were saying, Max, like, again, it's just to clearly throw us off to keep guessing on who this potentially is. There's something like we talked about with the Ryan Johnson mystery aspect, is that there's something that's going on that we're trying to solve, but we just don't know it yet. And I don't know if it is going to be anybody we know directly, but like we were kind of on that path. I think is a possibility is that it could be someone like Neil's a descendant. It could be just because it's a species. It could be that it is clearly the ruler, and so we're going to be able to see the ruler. I forget what we called him before.
The supervisor.
At Eton, the supervisor. We're going to see the supervisor just say in the next episode, and then it'll be revealed in episode 8 that is the captain, right? So it'll be that kind of twist. So I'm not sure if it's totally somebody we know. It might be just more or less holding back until we meet that person. I think it'll be pretty obvious, but
Right.
if
It does go that way, that'll be another example of victim of weekly release and having people like us talk about it for a week straight between episodes. If we meet a new character next week and we're all just like,
Of an
like
ancient
if we were
species.
binging this, or if it was a movie, they would get away with most of it. But yeah, having now discussed this at length, and if we meet basically anyone new next week or even the week after,
it's that
I'm gonna be
person.
throwing hands.
But there's also, a possibility that it's another Kim situation. And I complained when it happened to Kim too, that they were kind of leading us on for a split second, like, oh, I have an old friend. And like it just turned out to be a new character. That's possible with this too. But I'm going to be more upset this time if that is the case because of the weekly release. And they clearly kind of had that as like a big tease.
I also wish Kim. This is something that I feel like Star Wars does quite a bit now. Is they introduce a character for one episode and they either come back or they were just meant for that one episode. But I think something that I've always really liked about Star Wars, and I think it's in its DNA because that's how A New Hope is built, is when a new character is introduced, they're added to the gang, kind of. And I would have liked if Kim would have been like, yes, now I'm part of this gang. I know she has a history with Jod, but part of me is just like, oh, just write it a little differently, and all of a sudden now she is on board as well. I'm like, how cool will that be now? All of a sudden, it's like, I don't know, there's just a bit more, and then I think we can get more mystery and more about Jod with the kids, just with Kim interacting with them. So there's like this even bigger question mark that they don't trust him, but more reasoning, but at the same time she's following. I don't know. That's all. I thought that was a cool creature design, and
Well, that works out well with the genre too, because I feel like in the genre it usually has like a a misfit, gang of kids that are coming together in these types of situations. Like looking at Goonies specifically, like you have the group of 4 friends, but then you also have like their older siblings and their friends, and like all these people kind of get dragged in.
Can you name them all?
No.
Please.
Thanos.
Oh, damn, all right. What? No.
The mom from Raising Hope. Those are 2. Josh Brolin. That's who I meant to say.
Yeah, I just want the character names, but yes, that is.
Oh no, I would not be able to.
You
pull
did
that
better.
Out. And what's his name? The creature who goes with Chunk. Sloth. Yeah.
You could name Chunk, but not Sloth. Data, Mouth, Mikey, Bran, Andy.
It's all coming back to me as you're saying this. If it was multiple choice, I'd be able to get this. But anyway, and then so at the end, we finally get the big kind of reveal that everyone was warning us about, not to trust this guy over and over again. He challenges Fern per the pirate code for the rank of captain.
I fell for it. I was trusting him. I was shocked.
I was shocked too.
The fact that he knew he was going to do that, presumably. Once he got what he wanted, he knew he could change 33 on them. And it's such a good pull out, pull the rug out from underneath you moment.
Like, it's not confirmed that that's what he was thinking when he snuck the knife past the guards. Because at the time I was like, oh, good for you, Jod, bringing a knife. Yeah, got it past him. And the thought that he might have just been thinking, like, oh, maybe I'll need to use this on the kids. Ooh.
Yeah. Not great.
Yeah. I don't know, but I feel like it took him a while to make that decision. It wasn't like, okay, I heard what I needed to hear type thing. It was like he seemed like he was heartbroken about it a little bit. Maybe I'm reading too far into it, and I just
I think
want
so.
to root for him.
When he was holding Fern too, he was just like, just do it. Like, but he is ultimately a bad guy. Like we know that he's in prison. Like, before that, he's
in pirate prison.
I mean,
he would be in legal prison
he's a
too,
bad,
but
he's a bad guy captured by bad guys.
Right.
But I liked that whole bit, but the whole thing that they're over as well. So this was, I guess, the biggest reveal. I keep saying that like there was 20 this episode, but the treasure at Atten, it is the last Old Republic mint. So presumably they're just making money on Atten. And that's what the supervisor's doing, and it's all a Ponzi scheme, and nobody knows about it, and that's why he had to shut himself off from the galaxy, and he's just living high on the hog. I don't know.
Yep.
But I think that's such a great way to have treasure in Star Wars. Because if it was like literal buried treasure, like I'd still be, down for the ride, obviously. But this, like, I was just like, that just makes so much sense. That's so cool.
It's also kind of heartbreaking in the fact that it's like this child kids on bike story is then rooted in a very real, very greedy, very political type scenario where the treasure is just people printing money. Like the government is printing money. Like that is the most realistic, like bureaucratic answer to buried treasure. And it feels like I like that combination between these kids wanting this adventure and then wanting this like space adventure with like buried treasure. But in reality, it's just like, no, it is the Star Wars universe in the fact that like, it is good versus evil. It is more or less like, there's still mythical stuff out there, but it is still very, again, it's like bureaucracy, I guess.
I did not get this same reaction from you guys out of this. I think that did not answer any of my questions about anything. Like we knew that there was, I guess we didn't know. No, we knew that there was treasure on it because they had the Old Republic credits and they were spending them like they were just like it was just lunch money and not wildly valuable. The fact that it's mint, well, we can at least assume that we know that for sure. Like, what are they doing with this money that they're creating? Because they're not sending it back to the galaxy at large because Old Republic credits are still incredibly rare. And so if you're just using it internally in your planet, then it brings up all of, inflation and economics and all that. That's not incredibly valuable. So I still have no idea what they're doing.
I assume there's an aspect of it where only certain people are able to leave the planet, right? Like they're like, you're basically, which is where the enslavement kind of, or like unknown enslavement kind of comes into play, I think. Where
You think
it's
some
like,
people are leaving Ed Atten filthy rich and coming back and getting more money?
yeah, I think they're or being able to trade something or something. Yeah, I think there's like the overseer or whatever is like presumably going and wheeling and dealing outside of the planet in order to become richer, wealthier, and then be able to. I don't know. That's just
That would make sense for a way to enjoy your wealth, because
yeah.
like if the overseer has all the money, literally all the money in the world on Ed Atten, but it's just on Ed Atten, like what are you doing with it? You know?
Yeah, it's all fake. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
that makes sense. I fully buy into that. We'll find out. I'm assuming that will be answered further. I didn't mean to make it sound like that answered all of my questions. Just that when that was revealed to me, it just made a lot of sense. I was like, oh, that's so cool. I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of things were kind of clicking in that moment, even if all the answers weren't answered. Because, now we have kind of a clearer picture. And I think that's a great theory that the supervisor, maybe isn't even there at all. They're just off-world all the time.
Which is why they're
And this is
not
just
able
their,
to ever find
they're
them.
just using this planet as their own personal piggy bank, basically.
Yeah. I also I was I the only one who I know they were trying to hide the shot of Wynn holding a lightsaber, but instantly clocked it was upside down. Did anybody else clock that? When he's holding it, I was like, that's the bottom of the hilt. Like I saw that lightsaber for 2 seconds, and I was like, that's absolutely there's no hole. Like the saber's not gonna come out correctly.
Yes,
I
and
did
no.
notice that the hole looked funny, but it didn't register to me that it was just the bottom. I thought, oh, old lightsaber, that's neat. It even looks a little different.
I think I did. It was just one of those things I didn't really have enough time to process, because I was kind of thinking in the moment, like, I wonder how he knows if he's holding that correctly, because it did kind of seem like he was holding it close to his stomach too. And then when it came out the bottom, I got a good chuckle out of it. I thought that was funny. But then he just fucking ran away and hid like a coward. I'm like, Wynn, come on, man. This was supposed to be your chance. Go pick it up.
But maybe he'll redeem himself later on. And I thought we were going to get a moment where he looks down the barrel of it like Luke does in A New Hope. I was like, that would have been a really funny callback.
That would have been a good time to really show how overpowered the lightsaber is as a weapon. Like, a battle-hardened pirate king of like Jod will get mopped by a random 10-year-old with a lightsaber. Like, he just has to hold it in his direction, and there's nothing you can do against that.
Yeah. That'd be fun to see. But I don't know. Obviously he didn't. They went down the trapdoor, and then Jod takes possession of the lightsaber. And that was such a great cut to credit scene of him igniting it.
Oh,
you don't see it, but you hear it. But we do know that it's blue.
It was one of my favorite endings to an episode of all of Star Wars TV shows, because it gave me that excitement that you want to feel, I think, when you watch Star Wars. To be like, I want to know what's next. I know exactly what happened. I cannot wait for the next adventure. It was everything I wanted Star Wars to be. I think that's honestly, the entire episode was fantastic. Everything we're mentioning, all the questions we have, but then the way that ended was so good that that's the moment I'm still thinking about, and that's lingering, right? That is like the last taste of food that you're like, wow, I want to go back to that restaurant because I'm still tasting it.
I agree.
Wow, now I'm just thinking about my favorite endings to Star Wars TV show episodes. I mean, Boba Fett was introduced at the end of one of the episodes. Season 2 of Mandalorian, episode 1. That was awesome.
That's a good reveal.
Osha putting on Chimere's helmet and the audio cutting out and her heavy breathing. That was awesome. There's got to be so many others.
Matt, I 100% agree with you. And again, I think the contrast between episode 4 and 5, where we talked about the ending to episode 4, where it just kind of ended with Neil passing out, and we were just like, huh, okay. Like that was a weird ending. And then this one, the way it ended, it had me fist pumping and jumping out of my seat going, oh, come on, give me the next episode. What happens?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Best.
I'm super excited. But that was it for basically the episode recap. So any other notes that I might have missed? Any other notes about the episode?
I like how seemingly random things keep happening. And I think for a moment like, oh, that's weird. But then I'm like, well, it's a pirate show and they're kids and it's just fun. And what's the harm in, accepting that as how it goes down? Mainly when Fern becomes captain over Smee so incidentally, and it's like, this is actually a majorly important thing that's happened, and it seems like they didn't put much effort into how she became captain. But now it's like, yeah, she didn't, and it does matter, and you can just usurp it like that. I loved that element.
Yep.
I had a few other notes. Oh, Neil asking Jod why he can't just say sorry to the Irish bounty hunter that is painted white that
Pocket.
you guys really complimented. Yeah, Pocket. Bringing back his story arc from last week and my same criticism with it. Not everything is so simple, Neil. You can't just apologize for things. Like, it would help, and maybe it would get better, but come on, Neil. Welcome to the real world.
Grow up, kid.
When Jod went to check on Wim because Wim like snuck away and Jod is a pirate and he's like, oh no, he's up to no good. And then he went in there and Wim was crying and he was like, oh, never mind, carry on.
Oh, thank God.
Kind of like baited into emotionally maturing him. And then my last note was all the translation scenes when they put such little effort into speaking a different language. That was hilarious.
Did you watch it with subtitles? I was just speaking gibberish. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was another thing that made me. That was why I thought of the D&D thing. I was like, okay, roll for deception. Yeah, it's definitely something that I'm pretty sure I have done while playing Star Wars RPG because I don't actually play D&D. I'm not a nerd.
No, yeah, wizards and clerics. Ugh, miss me with that.
Matt, any other notes that you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I said everything along the way, but no, I loved this episode. I'm very, very excited for next week,
Excellent.
which we'll also be recording later. So sorry, this episode's later as well.
Yeah, we're on a weird schedule with the holidays and everything like that, but better late than never. But before we do, I do want to give a quick force for thought. It's actually not so much of a force for thought as it is a show and tell, but I'm really excited because the Ghost finally came, and look at the fucking size of this thing.
Max, was this also... Did Lauren wrap this as well for you?
Oh yeah,
That's so cool.
that's what you want to see. Whoo, that is big.
I mean, I know that this is terrible for an audio medium, so I'm sorry for anyone who's not watching on YouTube, but this thing, it is ginormous.
It's huge.
Describe the weight.
I mean,
Heavier or less heavy
Yeah.
than your infant son?
Heavier. This thing is hefty.
Wow.
Max breeds some hefty chonkers too. So for those of you that don't know his kids,
That's true.
and
or at least his
Adorable.
kids as babies.
I'm gonna have to do like a full reveal, and we'll post it on our TikTok, so you can look out for that. But the
Yeah, I
insides
wanna
are
see
also
this.
very detailed. This thing is awesome. I am
And
obsessed
what figures
with this
did it come
thing.
with?
It came with 4 figures. It came with Hera, Kanan, Ezra, and Zeb. And all the levels were unlocked for the HasLab, and the only 2 that weren't included were Chopper and Sabine. And they immediately realized afterwards, so they were like, okay, we're also going to release these 2 if you guys want to buy them separately. So obviously everyone did. So I did. I have all 6 of them, which is cool.
Good.
But they're on exclusive card back that is only available through the HasLab project, so there's no way I'm ever opening them. So now I got to get other toys to put in this toy so I can actually play with it more with my nephew.
That's really tough.
Yeah, that's gonna
Man,
be
that's-
fun.
did-
Can I see the
Max,
loading ramp? Can I see the
when did
ramp
this-
that comes down to get inside?
Actually come out as well. Because I had the suspicion this was delivered a couple months ago and
elegant.
Lauren wrapped it for you for Christmas. Is that right in that assumption?
I was thinking that something like that might have happened, but I started to get emails like the week or
okay.
2 leading up to it saying that the HasLab was getting ready to ship, and then it was shipped,
Oh, well.
and then I kept getting updates, and then the FedEx guy, actually, when he was dropping it off, I wasn't home at the time, and he called me, and he was like, hey, let me know so I can get this to you because it's a signature required, and I think this is a Christmas gift for tomorrow because it was Christmas Eve, and it wasn't a
Whoa.
Christmas gift. I ordered this a year and a half ago for myself, but I was like, yes, I need this by tomorrow. It is very important. So I made
Wow,
this man
that's
sign back
crazy.
into work and drive to my house to drop it off for me. No, I'm just
I
kidding. He was like
thought,
10 minutes down the road, but I did get it.
I thought for some reason because when I saw the original date it was supposed to ship, it was October, so I assumed as well. Oh no! Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, Max, that is so cool. Your wife
is
sent me a
huge.
picture when you opened it, and it is one of the coolest Star Wars things I've ever seen. I think, to be honest. Where do you plan on displaying it as well? Because I can't even fathom where you're going to display that at.
It is.
I know.
It's
It needs to be
big.
accessible.
It's currently just taking up my entire coffee table in my basement.
Yeah, because I mean, you don't want to put it. You want to hang it in case it falls. You don't want to put it on
Yeah.
the wall in case it falls. But at the same time, you can't just put it on a coffee table for like 3 years. Maybe you could though.
But I don't know what else to do because I need it to be accessible because I had the exact same thought as you,
yeah.
Matthew. I was like, there's no way I'm hanging this thing up, and I don't want to put it on
No.
a shelf because I'm like, I do want to open it up and like look at the insides, and I do want to play with it because my 6-year-old nephew really likes playing with Star Wars toys, and I want to play this with him under very close supervision, obviously.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Man.
So anyway, that was my my Christmas show and tell.
I'm excited to sleep over now.
Dude, this thing is awesome. We'll be playing with this thing all night. Unfortunately, there's no
food for
space for you
thought.
anymore. It took up the entire space. But anyway, let us know. Let us know what you think of The Ghost. Let us know what you think of Skeleton Crew Episode 5. You can reach out to us on social media at Force for Thought and email us at forceforthought@gmail.com.
See you, Sammy.